Continuing on with our series on town meetings that are coming up soon, we headed down Route 7A to Arlington, where voters will tackle a warning with 42 articles on it. But that's par for the course. Voters there will vote on each individual funding request individually, rather than grouping them all together. The floor meeting will start at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 2nd, at the Mack Performing Arts Center at Arlington Memorial High School. On the town side, voters will decide the first 8 articles on the warning, then decide the rest at the polls, which will open at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, March 3rd. Voting will take place at the high school gym. We asked Keith Squires, the chairman of the town's select board, to walk us through the municipal warning and the town budget. One of the discussion points at the town meeting might well be about a new town position voters authorized at last year's meeting, a town administrator. It's been a frequent subject of conversation at recent select board meetings, and there's been a lot of give and take over whether or not this should be a full-time or a part-time position.
Well, I think in general the budget we are up in several areas, the administrator position being one of them. Probably is the biggest single increase in the whole budget. Right now we've got a total of $50,000 approved for that. We were trying to find someone part-time to do that work. The committee worked very hard at reaching out and trying to get candidates, and we could not find anybody that would want to fill the job for that part-time salary that we were offering. So we've talked about that whole thing and sort of revamped the schedule, I guess is a way to put it. We're going to be looking at the job requirements a little bit and maybe toning them down, at the same time increasing the amount to pay somebody for a salary. So that's where we're at right now on that one. We're going to be starting that process a little bit tonight at our meeting, start to talk about just how we go from here. So as far as the budget goes, we've got money enough in there to cover if we start somebody in June through the end of the year. So that's in the budget. Next year will be another story. We'll have to see how we have to increase to actually fulfill that position. It's going to be looked at more as a full-time job, but it'll be a salary position based on a job requirements, job description that we put together. So it'll be a little more open, I guess. It can be full-time, it can be part-time, whatever it takes to get the job done. Obviously thinking that down the road, job requirements may increase a little bit more than they are right now. Throughout the whole budget, all the different departments, we're looking at a total increase, and this includes the administrator position, of about $155,000. That'll be an increase over 2019. Okay, just to chase that along a little bit farther, using the tax rate from 2019, that would add another $50 to your actual taxes paid on a $100,000 value of property. So if you have a house that's valued at $200,000 in the town, the increase in the budget would be an extra $100 on your taxes. So that's kind of where that shakes out. It's more than we wanted, but when we look at the different things happening around town, the costs are going up for sand, salt, all those things. Plus we've got this whole emerald ash borer thing coming. We're trying to work on that to be a little proactive, and we're going to be looking at ash trees around town a little more careful this year and stuff, and probably doing more tree removal. That can add up to $10,000 pretty quickly. So that's just another one that's sort of new to the whole discussion, I guess is a way to put it. It's going to be a problem throughout the whole state once it gets here. They're looking at about 75 or 80% mortality for ash trees. So it can be very expensive to deal with. So that's just another piece of the puzzle. I don't think there's a lot changed as far as that goes, the actual warning. We've increased as far as appropriations go. Fire truck sinking fund, that's up to $75,000 from $60,000, so that's a $50,000 increase. The only other one, I think that's an increase, let me find it, the library. The library went up a few $1,000s in their request for funding. So those are the appropriations and the sinking funds. The rest of the sinking funds stayed the same amount. So as far as the warning goes, not a lot new. We had an article in last year as far as the supervisor goes, so that still holds over for this year. We don't need to warn that again. Other than that, it's as far as the warning goes, it's pretty much the same thing as last year. But we do have, let me back up on that for a second. We do have one Article 10 in there I sort of forgot about. The town entering into the communication union district. It's basically increasing the whole system as far as computers, as far as the amount of energy, the amount of material and timing and all that stuff. So as far as the warning goes, really, that's the only new article in there, I think.
Voters will also be asked to approve a school budget likely to pass the $7 million mark. School Superintendent William Basic unpacks the key elements of the school budget for us.
Well, it's actually a lot of good news coming from the Arlington School District for the second year in a row. The taxpayers will see a slight nominal tax decrease, maybe a half cent or so, but going down is always better than going up. Some of the things that we'll be looking at this year is a $525,000 surplus. That is really 2 years worth of surplus that we built up over last year. We were a little nervous with our tuition numbers coming in because we went down 2 years ago with some of the revenue coming in from our school choice. But those numbers have gone up actually. So we went up unanticipated about $113,000, and with some cost efficiency savings at the SU level, we've done a really good job at building up some money. So, but we need to put those monies somewhere now. So looking at that, we're going to put about $100,000 worth of that back into this year's budget to lower that tax rate just to that nominal half cent cut. We're going to put $205,000 in sinking funds. So on the ballot, the voters are going to see I think about 6 articles, everything from technology. We're going to put some back in our bus funds. We're going to put some in building maintenance. We're going to put some, we actually put in some down at wastewater treatment plant and so on. They'll see them on the ballots, and it's a good way to build things up in case something goes wrong to keep the sustainability of the Arlington School District so we don't get hit with surprises. And then we're going to put about $220,000 into next year's budget, kind of carry that over. We did have some unanticipated special ed costs this year that we know that probably around $100,000 to $120,000 that were unanticipated. They're built into next year's budget, but we know we're going to have to pay those back to the SU level, so we want to be prudent and bring some of those monies over. The great thing about this budget, there's nothing cut at all from the schools. Principals have done a great job, and the teachers, and they've really identified what we need to keep an excellent school, both at Fisher and at the AMHS. And so we have the optimum staff right now. So we're in a really envious position is we just have to keep this staff for the next couple of years or, until, either a population increase or population decrease. So that makes it very easy to budget when we can do that. So good news also is, we'll be able to maintain the excellent education in Arlington. A couple things that people need to look at so they don't get too confused is you're going to see the overall budget went up by 4.32%. But again, that is not really how the tax base is done in Vermont. It's done by per pupil spending. Our per pupil spending only went up 0.04. So that's really not even at all, went up less than 0.5%. So that gives us the low tax rate. So when they see that large 4.32%, a lot of that is some of the money that we put back in, the $100,000 that I talked about earlier, and some of that also is the $113,000. So it's kind of not what we really look at. What we really look at is the per pupil spending. It did go up 4% generally for 2 reasons. One, we talked about some of those higher special ed costs. And the second thing was it's just been uncontrollable health care the last 2 years. The state health care for teachers and staff have gone up over 25% in 2 years. I don't know how much longer that can be sustainable. So that's about where we stand right now. We feel really good, and we hope people come out and we see everybody on March 3rd for the vote.
The Battenkill Valley Supervisory Union, which consists of Arlington and Sandgate, will be dissolved and the Arlington School District will become part of the Southern Vermont Supervisory Union. But But that process still has a little more time to play out before it's final, Superintendent Basic said.
So we're going to have another meeting on February 24th to talk about the SU reassignment. That is back on the front burner, if you will. It hasn't been quite going as planned. Not to theorize on a lot of these, but I think a lot of the Act 46 and hindsight being 2020, these decisions aren't coming together as cleanly. I know that the SVSU was force merged, and they're only into year 2 of creating a very large elementary school district with all their K-6 schools, and it takes time. I mean, even if we look at the T&G, Dr. Daniel French started that in 2008. Frankly, and it's it took 10 years to come together, and the state to mandate it, or not mandate it, but at least give incentives. So I think what we're doing is, just being a little cautious and taking some time. We have some time. It's not until 2021. That may be extended. It may not. But I think again, in hindsight, the way Act 46 is rolled out and what we've seen, I think it's time to kind of take a look and do a little bit more studying on that issue.
There's also a competitive race for a select board seat, where Board Chairman Squires is being challenged by Todd Wilkins, who's currently the chairman of the school board. We'll be having a closer look at that race in a coming segment. Voters will be deciding that race also on March 3rd. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.